Game day edition of Football 24/7 with John McMullen live from down at the Linc. All presented by Stateside Vodka. Go to statesidevodka.com and get 15% off of a 1-liter bottle. Johnny Mack checking in from the stadium. Eagles are flying high, Johnny Mack, coming into the game today. It's been a fast week of conversation around the Philadelphia region. Josh Sweat got his big deal, and let me first ask you to comment about that since that came down yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my first thought was that you got to give Howie Roseman some credit, and I know people don't like that, but those are not difficult. Those are difficult decisions for GMs in this league to make, because essentially we've done this consecutive Saturdays, Krause. He took Jordan Mailata, essentially chose him over Andre Dillard, a 2019 first-round pick. Now what you're saying here is Josh Sweat, and correctly, by the way, you're evaluating he's more important to this team than Derek Barnett. Now, if we fast forward to next offseason, Derek Barnett might still be a part of this team if they decide to move on from Brandon Graham because of age and things like that. But these are difficult decisions for GMs to make, because you need your first-round picks to succeed. But Howie Roseman, the goal was to get a difference-making left tackle. The goal was to get a sort of difference-making edge rusher. They may have done it in unconventional fashion, but they think they've done it. And again, it's easy to say, well, just take the better player, but it's not. You can't always just do that.
I know you do so many of these reports, John. Sometimes they probably feel like they run together, but you started talking about Josh Sweat going all the way back to week 1, day 1 of training camp. As a matter of fact, I think he earned one of your very first game balls that we gave out, or that you awarded during training camp. So he's obviously had a good camp, and he's obviously earned what Howie extended to him yesterday.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Joe. I mean, I for a long part of the summer, you probably heard me say he might have been the best Eagles player of training camp. Javon Hargrave came on late. You could argue that he ended up, but either or, if you're 1 or 2, and they're both defensive linemen, obviously. I mean, he came in. He had a really effective training camp, and that has continued into the regular season. He was probably the Eagles' best edge rusher week 1 in Atlanta. So, when you give out these contracts, part of it is production, but part of it is, what you're looking from the player to do in the next few seasons. And that evaluation part of it is the difficult part. And the Eagles expect a lot from Josh Sweat, and they expect a lot from Jordan Mailata as well.
We're going to bounce around a little bit because this is a very quick and very fast report live here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Johnny Mack, of course, getting set down at Lincoln Financial Field. Kickoff at 1 o'clock this afternoon. This is our game day update. John, bring the viewers into the atmosphere. Obviously, perhaps it's quiet, or it's very methodically defined down on the field. But I saw a couple of tweets from you in terms of activity happening with some of the pre-warm-ups.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Nate Derry is back. He's on the 49ers practice squad. He was sort of holding courts midfield with some of his old teammates. He's not going to play today. He wasn't elevated. So Nate Sudfeld, who's also on the 49ers practice squad, the backup quarterback, is just kind of saying hello to old friends. It's interesting. The Eagles, I think, got the extra T-shirts from Penn State yesterday, because everybody comes in, every fan is going to get a white Go Birds T-shirt. So they're going to try to sort of replicate a whiteout, so to speak, and 70,000 people wearing those white shirts. So we'll see how that looks. But obviously, Lincoln Financial Field is always a difficult environment for the opposing team. And I thought there were a few teams, Seattle, The Eagles are in that conversation. New Orleans, Minnesota, with these really raucous environments, I thought they were really affected by the lack of fans due to the pandemic last season. That might be the difference in this game is the fans, because I'm one of them. A lot of people said on our various shows and various platforms that, they expect a close game. Most people default to the 49ers because they're a little bit more proven. I include myself in that category. But when you're talking about a one-score game, Krause, the fans could be the difference in that one score if there is a sort of big, high-leverage situation in the fourth quarter, and they can affect the game.
I know Darius Slay talked about it. Jason Kelsey talked about it. I'm sure everybody feels that. It's going to be very special at the Linc today when that team comes out of the tunnel. Let me ask you about Jalen Hurts. 264 yards, 3 touchdowns in that opening game a week ago against Atlanta. He comes in to face a 49er team that certainly is in a better position to put more pressure on Jalen Hurts, Johnny Mack, and now I don't know how that changes the dynamic, but that'll be one of the adjustments that Jalen and head coach Nick Sirianni will have to make.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Bosa is one of the best, if not the best, edge rushers in the NFL when he's healthy. He looks healthy after week 1, coming off the torn ACL from last year. It's going to be a big challenge for Jordan Mailata coming off the big extension last week. This is as good a player as he'll see all season at left tackle. And, I go back, during the Super Bowl season, you remember when Von Miller and the Denver Broncos came in here. And Von was just at his high level, most dominant at the time. And the Eagles kind of used it against him and said, okay, and Nick Sirianni's talked about this before. If you can't block him, read him and use that to your advantage. And maybe the Eagles go in that direction because it's really difficult to block somebody like that. It's going to take a bunch of people, going to take tight ends, running backs, shipping them. But there are other ways to go about it and to try to take him out of the game. And that's not only a test for Jalen Hurts, but also a test for Nick Sirianni.
Sometimes, Johnny Mack, the story is in the numbers, and then other times perhaps it doesn't mean so much. I was looking back at the Niner Detroit box or recap from a week ago. Jared Goff, who went plus 300, also put the ball in the air 57 times. So can we take anything from that in terms of Goff's success against that Niner defense or that Niner secondary, if you want to call it that?
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, Josh Norman, the 49ers are real banged up. They lost their best corner for the season last week in week 1. Verrett Mosley, their second corner, is not going to play today. Looks all indications. Josh Norman, our old friend from Washington, is likely going to get the start. He only signed a couple weeks ago for the 49ers. So the secondary is banged up. There is a little bit of a weakness there. But, for all the faults of Jared Goff, he can sling it. And when you get behind, like they were behind against the 49ers last week, you're going to throw the football a lot, as you indicated. And if you throw the football a lot, you're going to pile up some yardage. So part of that is the context of the game. You have to look into that. But no doubt the 49ers have an issue in the secondary. The question is Jalen Hurts the type of quarterback that can take advantage of that? You want to push the ball down the field. We talked a lot about Nick Sirianni scheming him up, the lack of air yards in the passing game last week. Everything was near the line of scrimmage, the bubble screens. In theory, you want to press things a little bit more down the field. You should have an opportunity to do that if you pass protect. And we talked about Nick Bosa before. So that's part of it as well.
We're still in that area of or that timeline here in the beginning of the season where perhaps Nick Sirianni is still under the radar. The defenses still don't know what to expect or what to make. There's that great uncertainty factor that you talked about going into the Atlanta game, and I'm assuming that carries over, meaning will Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell slash this San Francisco defense and rack up some running yards along with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles were the second best rushing attack in the NFL over week one. Obviously, a very small sample size, but that's a big part of what this team wants to do. And the quarterback is a big part of it. I think when people talk about the running game, they typically think about the running back and the old school mentality. I think the most important part for the Eagles is Jalen Hurts and his ability to run the football. That's what makes things more difficult for the opposing defense. So as long as Jalen Hurts is under center, that's always going to be a big part of the Eagles' offense, and they always want to get him going. And by getting him going in that part of it, it also helps the running backs, Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell.
And, of course, as you know, Johnny Mac, when you have a great offensive line in front of you, when the big uglies are there, and I love the big uglies, but when you start your build from the offensive line, that's a comfortable place to be when you know you have a solid O-line and a healthy O-line in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have a top 5 offensive line if they're healthy, if everybody is out there. Jason Kelsey and Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson, we all know the accomplishments of them over the years. Jeff Stoutland talked to us on Friday, raved about Isaac Seumalo. He's like the forgotten one. And he's turned into such a good player at left guard. And then we talked about Jordan Mailata, all the promise that he brings to the table, the big extension. Everybody loves him, the personality. And oh, by the way, Landon Dickerson is healthy now. So you have that depth as well. Andre Dillard on the bench, a former first-round pick. Again, you put that into the context in the rest of the league. And I joked about this watching Notre Dame play a little bit yesterday, because at the college level, Notre Dame is always bringing offensive linemen into the NFL. You're going to see one of them today, a Philadelphia kid, Mike McGlinchey, former first-round pick. Quentin Nelson might be the best guard in the league. Ronnie Stanley is one of the best left tackles. Zach Martin's going to the Hall of Fame. His brother, Nick Martin's been a starting center for years. That team at the college level always has great offensive linemen, and they don't have it this year. They haven't been able to reload. They have a bad offensive line, and I joke, it looks like they joined the NFL because everybody in the NFL has a bad offensive line, with a few exceptions. The Eagles happily are one of those few exceptions, and that is the strength of their team. You could argue defensive line as well, but that is the strength of their team.
Last thing from John McMullen on this game day edition of Football 24/7. I'll give you the opportunity to do the shout out, Johnny Mac, because I saw the post that you pushed out on Twitter. It was so nice to see Big Daddy Graham be recognized by the team in the press box, part of the Philadelphia history of Philadelphia sports in this town, and it was really nice to see. I think it was a great job by the Eagles.
Yeah, great job, and unfortunately, it's always sad to see these types of things. The Eagles have been very good with that in the past as well. Don Banks, one of the great national writers over the years, unfortunately passed away. They did a tribute to him. John Smallwood, the ex-Daily News columnist, and unfortunately Big Daddy Graham. And I know my partner Jody Mack was very close to him. And yeah, the Eagles did a great job, and everybody should check that out at JF McMullen on Twitter. Nice little tribute to Big Daddy Graham.
Well done, well stated from Football Insider John McMullen. It's our game day edition of Football 24/7, presented by Stateside Vodka. Go to statesidevodka.com use the code JAKIB and get 15% off a 1 liter bottle of stateside vodka. We will attempt to do our halftime update if we can work that out here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, and then we'll get to all of the details from John McMullen on the live post-game show right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Back to work you go, Johnny Mac. I hope the food inside the media area inside the press book is as good as it is hyped for today's home opener.
Yeah, I'm a big breakfast guy, so 1 o'clock games are always exciting for me, Krause.
All right, good stuff. Johnny Mac, appreciate it, man. Enjoy your day down at the Linc. A lot of work to come from John McMullen. It's our game day edition of Football 24/7. Until we join you live a little bit later on, I'm Joe Krause on behalf of John McMullen. See you next time, everybody.